We're here to bring a new type of news show.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Bringing news just for you is Thursday, January 29th here in Seoul. I'm Isujin, and this is News Generation. Joining us today is Julian.
Happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday. Also, Brooke is with us.
Hello, happy to be here.
Good to have you. And both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. So as we head into the end of the week, we've got a story that might have you craving something spicy. And if you're wondering what today's topic is, you might have already have a clue from what our panelists are wearing today. So those padded floral vests that are usually associated with the winter kimjang season when families gather to make kimchi. But interestingly, similar designs are now popping up in stores with luxury fashion houses like Valentino and Moncler selling their own versions. And it's not just kimchi-inspired fashion that's gaining attention because kimchi itself, a staple on Korean tables, is getting an unexpected spotlight overseas. So in the US, its nutritional and health benefits are drawing growing interest. So Julian, can you tell us what's behind this renewed fascination with kimchi and why Americans are suddenly so curious about it?
Yeah, so Americans have a newfound fascination with kimchi because it's a type of dish that the average American is not very familiar with. Fermented food, aside from yogurt, was generally considered to be more niche and exotic, but with more and more people recognizing the health benefits of fermented food, there is a growing number of people interested in it. In fact, kimchi has been listed as a representative example of fermented foods in the U.S. government's newly released 2025 to 2030 dietary guidelines for Americans. Now, this is the first time kimchi has been included in the official U.S. dietary guidelines, so it's pretty exciting to see that.
Yeah, it was really cool to see that. So do you have anything to add to this?
Well, yes, the guidelines that Julian just mentioned actually apply across the entire public health system now. So that includes schools, the military, hospitals, and nutrition assistance programs. So like he said, in the U.S., interest in fermented foods is pretty high. And that's because a lot of doctors and health officials are now focusing on the priority of gut health and the microbiome. And so now kimchi is mentioned alongside foods like yogurt and sauerkraut as a natural source of probiotics. It's also touted by scientific experts as a food that can help increase beneficial gut bacteria, support digestion, and contribute to immune health, amongst other health benefits. So it's kind of like a superfood, and it's great to see that America is now recognizing its nutritional value.
So kimchi has gone from a side dish in Korea to something doctors are actually recommending. That's quite a significant shift. So we're going to talk more about this, but first, let's take a look at the screen. Kimchi, a fermented dish made from vegetables and spices, has long been a staple on Korean tables. But now, kimchi is no longer confined to dining tables in Korea. Around the world, it's gaining recognition for its nutritional value and health benefits, drawing growing interest from global consumers. Today on News Generation, we take a closer look at how Koreans eat kimchi in their everyday lives, the rising popularity of kimchi overseas, and what it will take for this traditional dish to remain loved and relevant for generations to come. As we just saw in the video, kimchi has become much more visible overseas, especially in the US. So let me start with a simple question. Julian, you're Korean American, so you obviously grew up in the US. So how were you first exposed to kimchi? Like, did you get to eat it a lot in the States?
So I grew up eating kimchi all the time, pretty much. Even though I grew up in the US, I grew up in the beautiful sunny state of California, where access to kimchi as well as Korean ingredients was generally pretty accessible. Remember as a child watching my mother make kimchi in the kitchen, and I'd be sitting on the floor with her asking for samples, and I remember that was probably the first time eating kimchi. It tasted so good. But it wasn't just our family that has this memory. Many of my Korean relatives and friends in the US also shared the similar experience of eating lots of kimchi at home. Unfortunately, as I moved away and I lived separately from my family, I did eat a lot less kimchi. But now that I moved to Korea, I definitely have started eating as much as I did when I was a child.
So your story kind of shows how deeply kimchi is rooted in Korean American households, even across generations. So Brooke, I'm guessing your experience was a little different. So how were you first exposed to kimchi.
Yes, that's right. I actually had never tried kimchi before I came to Korea. The first time I had it was at a hueshik. So for those who don't know, a hueshik is a popular gathering here in Korea. It typically involves work colleagues coming together and bonding over a shared meal. So I feel quite lucky actually that my first time trying kimchi was a very authentic experience. I was at a Korean barbecue place and my coworker was grilling the meat, and they all taught me the best way to eat kimchi, which is of course paired with some deliciously grilled meat. That is to this day my favorite pairing. And I know some people say that it can be an acquired taste if you're a foreigner and you've never had kimchi before, but I fell in love with it at the first bite. And I still have it to this day almost every day. I love it with ramyeon and any sort of protein. I just think it is such a delicious, tangy bite. And I'm not the only one. And it's not just people that are living in Korea that have this experience. Nowadays in America, you can go to supermarkets and find kimchi on the shelves. You can also go to restaurants and they will serve kimchi with the meal if it's a Korean style restaurant. So a lot of Americans are enjoying it too. And we're definitely seeing that kimchi is being incorporated into more people's diets, not just in Korea, but across the world as well.
So it's interesting how kimchi often starts as a side dish, but quickly becomes a must-have. And this growing familiarity is now being recognized more formally overseas as well. So we're also hearing that many countries have even designated a day to kimchi. So where has this happened, Julian?
Yeah, so this is actually very super exciting because in 2021, my home state of California actually became the first place outside of Korea to officially designate a Kimchi Day, which is observed on November 22nd. Now, this is also the same day as Kimchi Day in Korea. Since then, Virginia, New York, and Washington, D.C. has also designated their own Kimchi Day. So as a Korean, it's just very surprising and it makes me super proud to see just how popular food is growing overseas.
Right, so cool. And it's remarkable to see kimchi being recognized officially beyond Korea. And I'm guessing it doesn't stop in the US. So what are some other notable examples of this?
That's right. So let's start with Sao Paulo, Brazil. So Kimchi Day is celebrated on November 22nd there through community events that are centered all around Korean food and Korean culture. Meanwhile, Paris's 15th district actually officially designated Kimchi Day last year, and that marks the first recognition of its kind in the European Union. So that's pretty big news. And then a few years back in July of 2023, Argentina became the first country outside Korea to recognize Kimchi Day on a national level. It's now a national observance. And on this day, Korean communities will come together to do things like cultural events, tastings, festivals, just celebrating this amazing superfood. And these designations of Kimchi Day really show that kimchi is not just a food. It is a symbol of cultural exchange. And we talk a lot about the K-wave. I think that K could really stand for kimchi because kimchi is making a splash all over the world. And it's great to see.
All this really shows how kimchi has gone from a local food to now a global cultural symbol. So let's bring the focus back to Korea for a moment. Julie, I'm sure all our viewers are wondering this. How are local Koreans enjoying kimchi? What kind of dishes are there?
Yeah, so kimchi is such an integral part of Korean cuisine. It's essentially a side dish that you cannot leave out when eating Korean food. But when people think about kimchi, they usually picture the red kimchi made with napa cabbage, but there's actually countless varieties of kimchi. For example, there's green onion kimchi, which is personally one of my favorites, radish kimchi, young summer radish kimchi, mustard leaf kimchi, water kimchi, chive kimchi, stuffed cucumber kimchi, and more to go. So long story short, any vegetable you could think of, you can pretty much make kimchi out of it. Now, the taste of kimchi also varies by region. In the southern parts of Korea, people tend to use more salted seafood and seasoning, creating a more deeper and richer flavor, whereas in the north, kimchi is made with lighter seasoning and with less chili pepper, resulting in a more milder and people would say cleaner taste. But even within Korea, kimchi flavor changes, and outside of Korea, there's an even bigger diverse portfolio of kimchi.
So like Brooke mentioned before, I do agree that kimchi might be an acquired taste, but like you mentioned, there's so many different types of kimchi. So I would recommend trying out the other ones. So there's far beyond the one type that most people know. It's not just eaten as a side dish either. So how is kimchi used in Korean main dishes and also in recent food trends, Brooke?
Well, I'm starting to get very hungry, especially after that video, and it's only going to get worse as I'm going to describe some of the incredible main dishes that are made from kimchi, because like you said, it's not just a side dish. I want to start with kimchi-jjigae, one of my personal favorites. Kimchi-jjigae is a stew. It's cooked with ingredients like pork, tuna, or tofu, depending on your preference. Personally, I love it with tofu. The next food that I want to highlight is kimchi-jeon, and this stands for kimchi pancakes. Now, you might be thinking, pancakes, sweet with syrup? No, this is a savory dish, and it's made by finely chopping the kimchi, mixing it into the batter, and then you pan fry it until crisp, and it is just one of those incredible comfort foods. Another staple here in Korea is kimchi fried rice. What they do is they fry rice up with kimchi in oil, so perhaps not the healthiest, but boy is it good. It has a very deep and savory flavor. You know, Koreans will eat these dishes together a lot of the times. You can have kimchi stew with kimchi fried rice and some kimchi on the side. Just kimchi on kimchi on kimchi. And looking at the younger generations, of course, they always want to kind of experiment on the old classics, right? So you'll see things like bulgogi kimchi burritos, just fusion dishes. And there's one that I only found out about when researching for this show. It's called kimpi-tang. So the Kim stands for kimchi, the P stands for pizza, like pizza cheese, so it's sprinkled on top, and then the tang is tangsuyuk, or sweet and sour pork. So really just a bunch of different ways and forms that you can enjoy kimchi in.
Hearing you describe it in such detail, also seeing the footage on screen is making me really hungry as well. So it's fascinating to see how kimchi continues to evolve from traditional stews to fusion foods and even snacks while still staying true to its roots. So we also wanted to hear directly from our viewers. So we ran a poll on the Arirang News YouTube channel asking, what is your favorite kimchi-based dish? So here's what the results showed. Nearly half of respondents chose kimchi stew, making it the clear favorite at 47%. And kimchi fried rice followed closely behind at 35%, showing strong support for familiar, comforting meals. And kimchi pancakes received 11%, while fusion dishes made with kimchi accounted for 7%. So looking at the results, it looks like even with so many creative fusion dishes out there, it seems like people still gravitate towards more traditional kimchi dishes. So these results really reflect what people eat most often at home, simple, familiar dishes that pair naturally with kimchi are what's most attractive. And to gain a broader perspective on this, we're going to talk to a young person from France who's also a fan of kimchi. And that conversation will take place right after the break, so don't go anywhere.
NewsGen wants to hear from you. Go to YouTube and search out Channel Arirang News. Click Posts. And cast your vote in the poll. Make a new type of news with us.
Joining us today is Luan from France, who's familiar with kimchi and also kimchi-based dishes. So hello, thank you so much for connecting with us today.
Hello.
So how much would you say you like kimchi, and how did you first come across it? How often would you say you eat it now?
I really like kimchi and kimchi-based food too. But I eat it every day, but only as a kimchi-based food, not as a side dish. But the first time I tried the kimchi was like in 2015 or 2016 at a Korean restaurant in Switzerland. And I tried it and I was like, this is special, but I keep want to eat it, and I really liked it. It's kind of addictive.
Great to hear that. So is kimchi popular in France, and why do you think more people are there eating it now?
It's really popular in France. Like, everyone knows what is it, and even if they don't, they know where is it come from. And I think it's become more and more popular because, like you said, it's really famous as a superfood, good nutritional effects and things like that. There are a lot of influencers, like vegan, vegetarian, especially influencer, that promotes the kimchi as a really good food for your body. And there is like the trend with K-pop, K-drama. When you see the food on the screen, you're like, I want to try it. And because of that, a lot of more people want to try it.
Well, that's great to hear, and thank you for your insights. So my last question for you today is, of all the kimchi-based dishes that you've tried, which one was your favorite? I know it might be hard to choose. And what would you recommend to someone trying kimchi for the first time?
Mm, I got my top three, that's sure. But among them, I would say the kimchi fried rice might be my favorite. Yeah, and I would recommend, I think, the kimchi stew because it's really kind of the basic food here in Korea. You have to try, and everyone eat it like at least once a week, I think. So for the for the beginner or people who really want to try it, I think kimchi stew is the best.
I mean, I agree. I feel like sometimes it's just like the classic dishes that really hit home. All right, thank you so much for joining us today. So we just heard from someone from France about how she first came across kimchi, how popular it's becoming there, and what she'd personally recommend to first-time eaters. And that growing interest is also showing up in the numbers. So Julian, how are Korea's kimchi exports doing? Which markets are driving this growth?
Yeah, so Korean kimchi exports are doing very well. So the kimchi export value was $148 million in 2022, $156 million in 2023, and as of October last year, it has already reached $137 million. Now, the main importers are Japan as well as the United States, but recently, thanks to the influence of the Korean wave, exports to Southeast Asia and the Middle East have been increasing as well. So I would say it's pretty, like you can pretty much find kimchi anywhere now.
Right, so I think those numbers really make it clear that kimchi is no longer a niche product, but a growing global export. And as kimchi spreads, the way people eat it is also changing. So we talked about how people in Korea use kimchi to make other dishes. So Brooke, how are people outside of Korea incorporating their own cuisines?
So outside Korea, kimchi is also being used in various creative and unexpected ways. I mentioned earlier the bulgogi kimchi burritos. Well, in Mexico, we're seeing kimchi show up in kimchi tacos, which I would love to try. Then if we move to Canada, I'm sure you all have heard of their traditional dish, poutine. Well, guess what? Now you can get kimchi on top. So you can get kimchi with French fries. They're really taking kimchi and making fusion dishes based off of their own classic dishes. We're seeing that in many countries. Looking at France, they have kimchi omelets on the menu now. And like our guest mentioned, a lot of vegetarian influencers and vegetarians in general enjoy kimchi. You do have to be careful and make sure you look at the label to make sure that it follows your dietary guidelines, because of course when you make kimchi sometimes you do use seafood ingredients, but there are many vegetarian ways to make kimchi, and it's one of those plant-based ingredients that just adds a real punch to every dish that you make. It just adds, flavor and depth. And so for that reason, a lot of people are really enjoying kind of experimenting with it and trying new ways to enjoy this food.
I mean, it's truly fascinating to see kimchi evolve into such a global ingredient. So that brings us to an important question about its future. So what needs to happen for kimchi to continue being loved by global consumers, in your opinion, Julie?
Yeah, I agree, because for people trying kimchi for the first time, it can be very intimidating. Those not used to the taste might find it too spicy, too garlicky, or overly sour. But I think if milder varieties and white kimchi were made more widely available, people would better appreciate just how diverse kimchi can truly be. I also believe that offering different types of kimchi using the vegetables popular in specific regions could help increase its popularity even further. So for example, different fusion styles of kimchi, such as carrot kimchi, popularized in Eastern Europe, can be another way to introduce people to kimchi.
Right, I agree. I think for a lot of first-time eaters, the smell might be a bit different, the way it looks might be a bit intimidating, but obviously taste isn't the only challenge for overseas consumers, Brooke. So what are your thoughts on how kimchi can continue its upward trajectory?
Right, so Julia mentioned that the taste can be intimidating. I think the smell is another factor. It is a fermented food, so of course that odor is going to be quite strong. And if you're a foreigner that doesn't know about or maybe doesn't have access to kimchi refrigerators, that aspect might be something of a hurdle that you need to overcome. So I think it would be great to see some more sealed containers and small portion packaging so that people can keep their kimchi at home without having to worry about that. And then just to end today off with a lighthearted story, wearing this vest reminded me of the kimchi making festival that I went to recently. It was for charity, so all of the kimchi that we made went to underprivileged households. And so it was a really beautiful experience. It was very cold that day, but I felt the warmth warmth and the love and the jong, which means affection in Korean, that everyone was putting into making that kimchi. So I think if people learned more about the history of kimchi and the importance of kimchi to the Korean people, as well as tried their hand at it themselves, I think it would make them more inclined to try it out and bring it into their everyday lives.
I'm glad you mentioned that because I think the beauty, I guess, of kimchi is not just the food itself, but also the process of making it.
Absolutely.
So from Korean dinner tables to global health conversations now, kimchi's journey shows how a traditional food can grow into something truly global without losing its roots. So whether it's enjoyed in its traditional form or reimagined in new and creative dishes around the world, one thing is quite clear. Kimchi has firmly earned its place on the global table, and the story looks like it's still unfolding. And that brings us to the end of today's episode of News Generation, but News Gen will be back tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Korea time with more stories and discussions. Big thanks to Julian.
Thank you for having me today.
And also Brock.
I can't wait to have some kimchi jjigae today.
And to our viewers, thank you so much for tuning in, and we hope you have the best day. We are
News
Generation.